out there, my colleague was just talking about the budget that we're expecting today. If you were standing at the podium, you're still Chancellor, what would we see you delivering?
Well, I think the overall message needs to be a bit of a reset, frankly. The government didn't get off to the best of starts, although it had a lot of goodwill, and it inherited problems. But the result is at summits like this, on the other side of the world, there's quite a negative sentiment about the UK, and that needs to be changed, and the government can do some things to show they've got an economic plan, the plan is pro-business, the country's going to live within its means, and if Rachel Reeves can deliver that later today, all for the better, and certainly I wish her the very best of luck.
Any advice?
Well, I think, plan beats no plan is the old adage, and I don't think at the moment people here sense that the UK has a clear direction that it's heading in.
Yeah.
And I think, Rachel Reeves would say, well, I had a black hole to fill and I've had to fix various problems. Maybe, maybe not, but what's true is the government has not until quite recently given an unabashedly pro-business or pro-enterprise message. If anything, it's been kind of raising taxes on business and pushing entrepreneurial and wealthy people away. That can change, and certainly I think the messaging in recent weeks has been a lot better from the government and a lot better from Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. Yep. But this budget, if it walks like a budget and quacks like a budget, it is a budget, even if Rachel Reeves won't call it that later today. This is a moment to sort of cement some of the good work of recent weeks.
What do you think the government is still getting wrong?
I think the overall message about the UK, and this has been true for a number of years, has not been one of overwhelming positivity towards the private sector, business and enterprise. And it started under the previous Conservative government. I was a Conservative Chancellor almost a decade ago, but I will say the last few Conservative governments had an ambivalent message about business. And you've got a Labour government that came in actually saying a lot of good things about business, but its immediate actions were to jack up tax on business, jack up the wealth taxes and the kind of things that allowed, for example, non-doms to remain in the UK. And the result has been quite a negative sentiment about the UK, against a backdrop in which anyway there was a question of how countries like Britain, applies to other European countries, are going to make their way in the world. Now, I think that can change. These are not unfixable problems, and there's a lot of strengths in the UK economy that can be talked up and supported by policy.
To your point about the pro-business or not atmosphere, the question of investability. Of course, we're here at the HSBC Global Investment Summit. What is the question that you're most often getting here, and I guess how much interest is there in the UK?
Well, look, the word, of course, on everyone's mouths, like everywhere else in every other policy forum, is Trump and tariffs. Two words. And, no one knows what's going to happen next week. And the UK, like other European economies and other allies of the United States, like Canada, are very affected by those decisions. So there's certainly a backdrop of policy uncertainty. It's self-induced uncertainty by the US government. Now, I think the question is, I'm not, by the way, someone who's ever supported tariffs as a means of, advancing a policy objective. But if the administration is serious about tariffs, then I would advise them to kind of get on with it, settle the issue, and allow the instability to settle down, and allow the tariffs to be priced into business and trade. It's the double whammy of the tariffs themselves, which are clearly a cost on trade and a cost on consumers and a cost on business, plus the uncertainty of whether they're happening, who they're applying to, and so on. And I think it's the combination of those two things. Now, if you're a tariff guy, as Donald Trump says he is, and to be fair, told the American people before the election he was, then he needs to remove the uncertainty, and I think that would help a lot. Obviously, in my view, the ideal thing would be to try and return to a more free trading world.
The other byproduct that certainly wasn't on my bingo card, at least this year, because of Donald Trump, is this pickup in defense spending that we've seen in Europe. How do I need to be thinking about that? Does that matter to corporates here in the Asia Pacific? Is it sustainable, this increased fiscal push, if you will?
Yeah. Well, you can't have a strong and healthy economy without security, and you can't have strong security without a healthy economy. So they're somewhat symbiotic, and they support each other. Of course, what the US administration has done is thrown into some doubt the US security umbrella over its allies, and that's led to some pretty historic decisions by Western democracies to take more of the burden of their own defense. Now, to be fair to Donald Trump, a lot of American presidents have been asking for that in the past, and he has achieved it. The question is at what cost? But I think if you look domestically, the announcement of the German government is really significant. When I was Chancellor, everyone was trying to get Germany to spend more money. And now they are, and I know Friedrich Merz pretty well. It's an unusual announcement coming from a conservative German politician. And of course, rearmament is something that hasn't been in the post-war German lexicon. So, pretty big moment, not to be underestimated. I mean, I would say rearmament is not the most straightforward way of stimulating an economy. I mean, you wouldn't rearm as your most efficient fiscal stimulus. There are other ways to use fiscal policy if you want to support the economy. But if you are going to be rearming for reasons of security, then I would say make sure the money, and this applies to the money, by the way, that Britain's about to announce today for its defence budget, make sure it goes into innovative new technology on the battlefields that's come out of the Ukraine experience. If say, the British defence budget just goes on money spent on cost overruns on some 10-year-old frigate programme, that's not going to help anyway. It's not going to make us safer, and it ain't going to help the economy. If it goes into some of these really exciting new defence startups, that you've seen in the US and you're beginning to see in the UK and continental Europe, then there may be a kind of collective win for the West.
I mean, that's an interesting point, this question of implementation. Were you in the Draghi, you were listening to Draghi speaking earlier. I mean, do you think that Europe is receptive to that message?
Well, I think the Draghi report, and Mario Draghi himself, has had quite a big impact in kind of making Europeans face the music of their economic situation. The question, of course, as you say, is can it be implemented inside the structures of the European Union? And to some degree, you need this crisis to force action. That's often the case in democracies and complicated international organizations like the EU. So if you're looking for a kind of silver lining to the kind of policy uncertainty, the uncertainty the Trump administration has brought in Europe, this may be it. And there's certainly, I think a discussion in every European capital now. How do we get our economy growing? How do we protect our country? And those are conversations prompted by Trump.